Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Georgiman and I'm your friendly neighborhood anime and manga fan. I love all things anime and all things manga, and I'm here today with a very special video of a breakdown / review of Takopi's Original Sin. So if you've been living under a rock for the last couple of weeks, Takopi's Original Sin is an anime that has absolutely exploded in the anime circles. Everybody's been talking about it, and it just ended a couple of days ago, and I needed some time to progress everything that I had witnessed in the finale. And now that time has gone by and I have a better understanding, and I got a lot to say about this series, and spoiler alert, I loved it. And I just wanted to make this video to pretty much give you guys a reason why you should watch this series, as well as why it's so important, and why, in my opinion, I think it stands tall in amongst one of the greatest anime of all time. And that's not recency bias. I think it really is. I think it will be looked up on years from now as an instant classic, because it tackles a lot of really serious themes and very dark themes in general, like, whether it's depression, bullying, neglection. That's a lot of stuff, a lot of heavy stuff that I think will hold on for many years to come, and will really, speak to a lot of people, especially dealing with sad tones. And now, right from the get-go, I will let you guys know that I will get into spoilers. I will, give you guys like a spoiler warning before I start saying it, so don't worry about it. The first section of this video will be why I like this show, and then right after that, I'll pretty much get into, what happened, and, my own take, and pretty much describe my own feelings of how the story played out in general. Now, before I go any further with this, review / breakdown, I just want to give you guys a quick reminder to make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you guys can be up to date with all my anime and manga, as well as all my future content that I'll be providing in this channel. It really helps out a lot, and I would really, really appreciate it if you guys could subscribe to my YouTube channel. So if you guys could, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Now, with all that out of the way, let's talk about Takopi's Original Sin. So, for starters, the one thing I think for anybody that's wondering why should I watch this show, it's 6 episodes. Very fast, very digestible. I think anybody can get it done within 3 hours or so. Also, the characters are great. I think they're really great, powerfully written, which is not surprising, because once you take a closer look into the cast, it's actually a very small cast. It only consists of 4 characters, which are Shizuka, Marina, Takopi, and Naoki. It's these 3 kids and this octopus alien. And for anybody that's wondering what's the plot, I'll give you guys a slight synopsis, which is pretty much this girl, she has a very terrible living situation, gets constantly bullied by this other girl, and eventually the girl that's being bullied, which her name is Shizuka, she stumbles upon this purple life form called Takopi, and this little alien is from this planet of happiness, and everything seems happy-go-lucky. He has all these gadgets that are quote-unquote supposed to make you happy, and he's very one-dimensional. This alien figure, he's very just all about happiness. He's not a complex character, let's just say that. He has pretty much the brain function of I would say a kindergarten. And that's not a diss or anything, it's just how it is. And pretty much as the story progresses, you slightly start seeing how Takopi's being settled with the reality of Earth. How in his planet everything might be happy-go-lucky, but it really showcases the dichotomy and the difference between his planet and Earth when he starts to face these situations that he has never had to face in his life. Whether it's bullying, whether it's depression, whether it's neglection. It's a lot of dark themes and very mature themes that he himself has never really experienced. So all of this is a new experience for him, and we get to see that through the landscape of this young girl Shizuka and her interactions with this other girl called Marina. And we also get some along those lines of this other kid called Naoki, which I will get into him later in the story. But if you guys are wondering why you should watch it, this is a slight synopsis, pretty much what I just mentioned right there. Also, the animation is great; it's really beautiful. So, if you wanted to know why you should watch this series, I think it's because of that. Also, one thing is that it's very unpredictable. I guarantee anybody that watches all 6 episodes, you're not going to be able to predict everything that goes down, which is very rare, because I feel like nowadays most anime that are coming out nowadays are very predictable, at least for me, at least. And this one really was a roller coaster of a ride. So if you're looking for a new show that you want to just sit down and enjoy without knowing what's going to happen, definitely watch this. If you want a show that was going to touch you to your core, I think, in an emotional level, this is another show for that. If you want a show that will make you cry, this is another show for you as well. So all these things compile into this great, masterful piece of work, which is, I think, this anime adaptation of Takopi's Original Sin. So yeah, pretty much that's my little slide non-spoiler synopsis. So for anybody wondering, going forward in this video, I will spoil pretty much the entirety of the story. So for anybody that already has seen Takopi, free to watch. If you haven't watched Takopi yet, come back to this video once you're done to this section of the video, and then we can talk about it. But with all that being said, I'm gonna start talking about spoilers. So 1, 2, 3, let's talk about these spoilers. So right from the get-go, as I mentioned earlier, you know, this synopsis is of pretty much, I thought the story was going to consist about Takopi trying to protect Shizuka from pretty much dying over and over and over again, because when we get the revelation of, you know, her pretty much hanging herself constantly over and over, and, you know, all these tries that Takopi keeps trying to protect her through, you know, changing the actions of the past, through going back in time to reverse time, and, you know, trying to do them differently. He's trying to do this, but eventually it gets to a point where he takes it upon himself to eliminate the problem that in every single timeline that he's gone to has been consistently ruining Shizuka's life, which has been Marina. Which right from the get-go, I will tell you guys, I hated Marina, man. I hated her with a passion. I was like, this girl is the spawn of Satan, like herself. Like, this girl is the worst. Now, I did have my suspicion that, you know, her living arrangements wouldn't have been the greatest also, because I've always known that when it comes to bullies, and this can be like maybe because I've become mature, you know, I'm an adult now, but even back as a teenager, I always knew that I had a feeling that, you know, these kids, you know, when they bully somebody, it just doesn't come naturally. I think there has to be something, whether it's their living situation, whether it's the way that their parents treat them. It's not that somebody doesn't just wake up and be like, and become, hey, I'm gonna be a bully. I think it has to do a lot of factors, and I think that the reason that the show depicted why Marina was such angry at Shizuka, and why she had all this disdain, and she needed to just explode and pretty much at her, I think it did a great job at it. Now, I'm not saying it was justifiable, not whatsoever. I don't think, you know, bullying is justifiable at all, but I think it made it so that we understood as the audience, okay, I can see why Marina is so messed up in the head, because her family situation is crazy. It's not great, let's just say that. And as the story progresses, you know, when Takopi eliminates Marina, this was crazy. I was like, okay, so the camera is broken, so he cannot just go back in time anymore. So going forward, it's just gonna go, you know, linear storytelling. And I was like, oh, okay. I thought this show was going to be a time traveling show, but I guess not. So I'm strapped in. I'm ready to see what's going down. And we see that pretty much the crazy part about it is, as Takopi kills Marina, for me, it was sad, but it was also very, like, it was sad in the sense that, oh my God, Takopi just committed such a terrible sin, which is the title of the name, right, of the show. But also because you see a kind of like a 180 where we see that, you know, such a terrible thing as, you know, a child being murdered is being praised by Shizuka. You know, we as the audience, we were hoping to see Shizuka, you know, stop being bullied and, you know, have a happy life. And when she eventually gets rid of the problem, we're thinking to ourselves like, oh my God, like, wait, this is a crime. And when this crime starts developing, it really develops, because we see that eventually one of the classmates, which is Naoki, the kid that I brought up earlier in the story, he stumbles upon this, and man, this guy, I'm sorry, this guy, like, I feel bad for this kid. He got dragged on, and I will say that it makes sense why he got dragged on, but it was stressful. If I'm this kid, I'm losing hair, you know, I'm pulling my hair, I'm crashing out real quick, because not only he finds out about this murder because he just randomly stumbled upon it, now he's a part of it because he's an accomplice. You know, he's trying to protect Shizuka because he honestly does care for her, and henceforth, you know, Takopi then makes this whole plan of he's gonna use one of his you know, gadgets to make himself look like Marina, so the parents never suspect that Marina, like, you know, she went missing or anything else. So it all does, you know, eventually come crumbling when the pod that they put this body, you know, Marina's body, this pod gets discovered by like the police, and that's when the cat's out of the bag, and everybody knows that, hey, Marina's dead. And an interesting thing to note is that when Takopi was disguising himself as Marina, he was living on obviously Marina's place, and this is where we get the insight of, you know, Marina's horrible living situation, which was a little bit hinted before, but once Takopi gets in there and you get to see really just how bad it is, like, you know, you see like just how horrible her situation is, and, you know, it starts making you humanize her. You know, this character that we all hated for the first like 1 or 2 episodes, now we're starting to understand, okay, I see why she would become such a terrible kid because of her upbringing and her, life choices of her parents, And as all that is happening, we see that Shizuka starts becoming more and more an antagonist. And what I mean by that is, like, hear me out for a while. She starts taking the same route that her mom's taken. And for anybody that I brought up earlier, her mom is a prostitute, and what do prostitutes do? They usually, lure men, and they take they use them for their own gain. And that's not being like malicious or anything. That's really what it comes down to, right? And Shizuka takes the, as like I said, the upbringing of a parent. It really showcases that when Shizuka herself starts, using and manipulating Naoki to her own gain, because once the whole fiasco comes out of, the cops, finding out about the murder, that's when she starts using her charms and, pretty much seducing and, gaslighting Naoki to take the fall for her. He's like, oh, you love me, right? Like, come on, protect me. You're my savior, right? And this was like horrendous activity by her. But it's only fair to assume that she got that from her own mom, right? I mean, am I wrong or not? I think that it really, once again demonstrated the upbringing of Shizuka, where she had to like kind of struggle and just kind of manipulate everybody, and she starts definitely doing that, where she manipulates Naoki, and then Naoki eventually starts crashing out, and we get this whole backstory about him and his, also having a terrible family situation where his mom is horrible. And there's a thing I will say about the show: all of the adults are horrible. There's not a single kind soul in this show besides Takopi. But when I get into, there's a really great moment where Naoki, like when he's very straightforward in the idea of, okay, I'm gonna confess myself as the one that killed Marina, which just so Shizuka can be safe. And when he does that, right before he does it, his brother and him have a very emotional scene where he's like, it's always easy for you, where he had this chip in his shoulder where his brother was always the perfect child and he himself was like the dark sheep. But then his brother opens out, was like, listen, I'm not perfect, and like, I love you, you're my brother, I'll do anything for you. And it was a very powerful moment. I think a lot of people with siblings do relate to that kind of dynamic with the two brothers, whether it's jealousy or the favorite child or why not. I feel like a lot of people watching the show might even like relate to his story a lot, and I think that they really did a great job where the two of them reconcile and their bonds as the brothers get even better than they ever have. And we start ending the final climax of the story, I would say, is where we see that Marina eventually Shizuka, that after Naoki takes the fall, she and Takopi go all the way to Tokyo, wherever her dad was, because her dad was like, they said that Choppy, which was the one thing that was carrying Shizuka's whole life to happiness, when Choppy dies, pretty much, we knew he was dead. But when she confronts her dad, is because her mom had said like, oh, he's gonna be at your dad's place. She goes to her dad's place, Choppy's not there, and then we get the revelation that obviously the dad is not just a deadbeat, but he also created a new family, and he doesn't even acknowledge his own daughter, which was horrendous, man. It was horrible. Like, I was like, man, everybody sucks in this show. All these adults are terrible. And obviously, as all that goes down, we see that pretty much Shizuka crashes out, and it's implied that she pretty much knocked out Takopi like with a rock. And while she's doing all that, while she knocks Takopi in the floor, she starts crashing out. It's like, oh, they don't have Chappie, and she starts talking about this nonsense like, oh, maybe they ate Chappie and they're dissecting him, maybe I gotta cut them open to like get Chappie out. And I was like, well, she's lost it. She lost the plot, and she definitely did, because then she starts attacking poor Takopi. And as Takopi's being hit by Shizuka, this is where we get the huge revelation of Marina actually a flashback of Takopi and Marina actually being partners. And this is where a big, like I said, the biggest plot twist of the show was, where apparently in another timeline, Takopi originally was Marina's friend, and that he was trying to protect Marina from her terrible upbringing. And eventually it got to a point where, through some elaborate crash out of Marina's mom, were to short story summary was that pretty much Shizuka in that timeline took back her anger at Marina by stealing her boyfriend. And she knew she was going to do that. That's why she was manipulating Naoki to break up with Marina so she can break and make Marina suffer, just like she herself was making Shizuka suffer many years prior. And this were they were eventually going to have a family dinner where Marina was going to invite Naoki, and her mom was there, and then the mom crashes out because she's like an alcoholic, and eventually the mom dies. Whether it's self-defense that Marina did that, or the mom herself took her own life, we don't know. It's not really implied. The point is, Takopi walks in there and he's like, I'm gonna save this, I'm gonna make everything right. And he reverses time, but he broke the rule. He actually went in the clock, and henceforth he had this amnesia thing. And the amnesia thing is kind of like, okay, whatever, like I get it. It makes sense why he lost his memory. A little convenient, yeah, sure, but it does make sense, I guess. And because even the mother of the planet did explicitly said that you'll lose all your memories and whatnot if you do it this way. And what happens is that pretty much as Takopi goes back in time, he resets to the current timeline. Now he resets to the pole where originally him and Chizuka met, and this is where we get a very emotional scene where Chizuka comes back home, and we see these news clips of apparently that Chizuka, she had kidnapped her 2 siblings. She eventually let them go, but she killed her dad, which was, listen, I ain't gonna say nothing, but I will say that her dad was terrible. So whatever, I'm not losing any sleep over the dad, right? But however, she did a horrendous crime, and she also apparently killed another innocent bystander, trying to get her in a boat or something. So she's done a lot of atrocities, and this is where Takopi confronts her, like, hey, you gotta cut it out, because this is not you. You should not be doing this to. And this is where she starts just beating up poor Takopi, and this is a great parallel, I think, to seeing how far Chizuka has gone, because now at this point in the story, Chizuka has become Marina, the Marina that we saw earlier in the story, with the big bully, the monster, that all this hatred and anger that she's just taking out on poor innocent people that are weaker than themselves. Because that's another thing, Marina was always bullying Shizuka because Shizuka was an easy target. She was weak, easy to bully. Same thing with Shizuka bullying Takopi. So it's a full one circle moment, and I thought that was fantastically done in the story. And pretty much as she's beating Takopi up, Takopi eventually calms her down through love. And I think that I seen some people might be like, oh, the power of friendship, power of love. And listen, man, yeah, I got no problem with it in this scenario, because the whole theme of this show has been about nihilism, depression, being neglected, just overall just sad, man. And I think that loneliness as well. We see that all it takes is one person to be there for you to pretty much snap you out of it, and somebody that really cares for you and loves you. And that was Takopi, where he eventually holds Chizuka's hand, and that's where he's able to pretty much free her from her suffering. And she snaps back and she starts crying. She's really crashing out, and this is where Takopi does the ultimate sacrifice, which I was not expecting at all, which was pretty much he, through his own life force, he's able to do a time leap once more, in which he would revert everything to before Shizuka met Takopi. And as this is happening, we get this emotional scene where Chizuka's just crying, and Takopi is just saying goodbye. And my girlfriend was crying watching the show. I was getting a little teary-eyed during this scene, because obviously Takopi, GOAT character, he's gone. And as this new timeline gets reset, we catch up and we see that everything seems to be back to how it was. Marina bullying Chizuka, and we see that the bullying hasn't stopped. But we do see some glimpses where we see Marina's like, oh, she's wearing that hairpin again. And it's like, wait, what hairpin? And you see that there's a little glimpse of the Takopi within them. Whether that's because of the timelines that they're, maybe the power of their love or the memories they had transcends time itself. Who knows? It's just it's something natural to them. And the best comparison I would say is for example, anybody that's seen Steins Gate, similar to reading Steiner, which is an ability in that show where somebody can travel through other multiple timelines, yet they can have vague recollection of the other timelines that they travel through. It's to summarize that, you guys can look it up yourselves, but that was my best comparison. Maybe Chizuka and Marina had a little bit of reading Steiner within them that made them remember Takopi. So as I'm blabbering about another show, we see that pretty much as Marina is bullying Chizuka, she eventually beats her down, takes her to the floor, and she's about to stab her with a pen, how we have seen numerously times in the past, we see that one of the books opens and we see a scribble of pretty much Takopi, and this scribble of Takopi is what makes them, start remembering, like, vaguely, like, what is that stupid octopus drawing? Like, it sucks. And you see the two of them start bonding over something, and that something obviously is Takopi. And as all that is happening, we see that then they start breaking down and they both cry. And I think it's something like, it's a feeling that they themselves don't know why they're crying, but I think it was the fact that Takopi was able to befriend both of them and have such an impactful connection with the two of them that it even transcended time. And just seeing the picture of them, of Takopi, was able to make them both break down and just cry. And maybe, I mean, not even maybe, they did specifically clarify, yeah, they do become friends pretty much soon after, not soon after that, but pretty much after this. They stop, Marina stops bullying her, and that's what it all goes down. And an interesting thing to note is that their living situations don't get any better at the end of the show, which I've seen many people complain about. I've seen a lot of people say, like, oh, what, they're they still have, like, the crappy living, their parents are still crap, and I'm like, yeah, that's fine, because they at least have friends. They're at least friends with each other. They at least have somebody to, like, banter with and be there for each other, which I think that was the main theme of the story. Spreading the love of friendship, which was obviously what Takopi was all about. He wanted to spread friendship and love, and he just wanted to make everybody happy. And in a way, he did, by making Marina and Shizuka's living situations maybe not any better than they already were, but at least now they have a friend that can be there for them to carry them through their crap, their crappy living situations. And as the episode ends, that's how the story ends. We see that Takopi did get his purpose, which was spread happiness, in other words. And I think that, like I said, I wanted to bring up is that Shizuka and Marina are very complex characters. I think they're really great characters, especially for the small amount of time we got with them. It was 6 episodes. Like, oh my god, talk about a legendary run. You know what I mean? These people were, like, performing like LeBron in his prime, in the sense that with this small amount of screen time, they really gave it their all. And especially with the voice acting, oh my god, the voice acting was godly. I thought they did an amazing job. And I think that the small amount of time we got with their backstories and their conflicts and their living situations, we saw how pretty much they both got depicted the opposite of each other towards the later end of the story, where originally Marina was a bully and was a monster, right? We portrayed her as a terrible human being. As the story nears its end, where we get the flashback of her and her origin story, we see that her living situation is completely horrible, and her mom treats her like crap. And we actually see that Marina is actually a sweet girl. Deep inside of herself, she is actually a sweet girl. And the opposite flip end of that script, where we see that Shizuka at the beginning of the story, you see that she is the the one being picked on, the one that she just has the short end of the stick, the one that's being tossed aside by everybody, bullied. Eventually she becomes a monster, just like Marina was at the beginning. So it was a nice 180 comparing both of their upbringings. But yeah, this show, man, it's heavy. It's very, very great. I thought it tackled the themes of depression, loneliness, neglection, and just everything. The family dynamic of coming from a bad family upbringing. I thought they just did everything great. And it's a show that definitely will crack my top 15 of my favorite animes of all time, and I think it definitely will for you guys as well if you guys watch it. But with all that being said, what did you guys think about Takopi's Original Sin? Did you guys love it? Did you guys hate it? Did you guys thought it was alright? Whatever you guys thought, let me know in the comment section down below. Also, thank you so much for sticking all the way to the end of the video. I really appreciate it. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more anime and manga, as well as more content in the near future. But yeah, with all that being said, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Bye bye.